Good day and welcome to This Week in Plymouth. I'm your host, Julie Thompson, with, of course, Town Manager Derek Brindisi. Welcome.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
It's great to see the other host today.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being the host.
I'm guest hosting for you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Big, long meeting last night for the Select Board.
Yes.
A lot of things were covered, so let's go over some of the highlights.
Sure.
If you can talk about the warrant article number 10, about the HR department. Talk about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this one up, because this one's really important. And our Human Resources Director, he's the one that presented this article. And I had a chance to kind of fill in the blanks in some spaces. And one of the things I said to the board last night was that of all the articles, in my mind, when I look at the warrant for the annual town meeting, to me this is the most important article that's coming up. It's really important. And so what the goal of this article is, we have the personal bylaw. The personal bylaw is basically the rules of how we manage the non-union employees. So, you know, how we give out benefits, compensation plans, classification plan, you know, earned time off, sick time. It's the rules of engagement, and it's what we use to manage non-union personnel. Because
union personnel have their own sets,
yes,
which are negotiated by the union.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that's a key difference, and it came up last night, and I forget who brought it up, but the collective bargaining agreement is negotiated with the administration. It's ratified by the Select Board, and then any agreements that are made there, whatever appropriation that's necessary, the appropriation question is then brought to town meeting.
Okay.
So that's a very important distinction when we talk about Article 10 and this year's warrant, is that town meeting doesn't approve the collective bargaining agreements. They approve the appropriation.
Right.
But with the personal bylaw is different. So in some respects, we treat our non-union personnel differently, in that anytime we want to make an amendment or a change to the personal bylaw, we have to go to town meeting, we have to present that to town meeting, and it really restricts our ability to be flexible, especially when the folks that understand how personnel issues work, especially in a state like Massachusetts, there's a lot of changes that happen in the course of the year. You know, whether it's minimum wage changes, it could be like the new Family Medical Leave Act change. And so what ends up happening is we have to wait twice a year to go there, present that to, quite frankly, a legislative body that really doesn't understand the nuances of personnel issues. And so what we're trying to do with Article 10 is to treat it the same way we treat collective bargaining. That we'll have a personal bylaw on the books, and it'll basically say that there will be, in the town of Plymouth, a personnel rules and regulations that will be approved by the town manager with oversight by the Select Board. So it's the same exact process we use for collective bargaining. We negotiate it with the unions, we bring it to the Select Board for final ratification. So we want to create these what will be known as personnel rules and regulations, so that we can be more flexible and be more responsive to all the human resource needs for our union personnel. And so that's why this is so important to me, because it'll allow us to move much more quickly than how we're moving now.
Okay.
And so go ahead.
Can I just ask a quick question? What are the departments, or who are the people that are union and are under collective bargaining, and what are the types of positions that are non-union?
Right. That's a good question.
Just if people don't know.
Yeah. So we have 9 unions here in town.
Yep.
We have a firefighters union. We have 2 police officer unions. So one for the patrolmen, one for the officers.
Yep.
The entire DPW is one big union in and of itself, with the library, their union staff. So all of our librarians and union staff. Teachers, big union here in town. And we have a couple other administrative unions, like one is SEIU. So when you go to the town clerk's office and you're greeted by the town clerk front office staff, they're one union.
So it's like a clerical union?
Yeah, like a
clerical workers union,
And then there's like more of what they would call like a professional mid-level managers union, which is really our mid-level managers. And then there's a lot of other people that are not in the union. So all of our department heads are not in the union. All of our staff on the 4th floor, in the town manager's office, the human resource department, all non-union. Many of our division heads are non-union as well. So so it's interesting, because when we see the abundance of union employees,
right,
and then we have this like small group of non-union employees, we treat them differently.
Yes.
Because we have to go to town meeting to add a benefit
Yep.
that a union's are already getting,
Yep.
for example. So again, this Article 10 will allow us to treat our non-union employees the same exact way we treat our union employees.
Right.
And it's
Even
the same
the playing
process.
fields, yeah,
Right.
gives them the same process. That sounds
Yeah. So again,
makes sense.
I'm hoping that when we plan on going to all the caucuses, presenting this, and we're hoping that we get a majority approval to pass this.
Sure, it makes sense. Now, Karen Keene did a presentation on changes that will have to happen with Title V and septic systems, private septic systems. And I know it's a really complicated issue, and you'll probably have Karen on at some point on the show to do a show on that. But can you just give a brief overview of what that was about?
Yeah, Karen Keene is our expert,
Yeah.
and definitely in this, and she did an amazing presentation. And there were a lot of really technical questions that were asked of her by the board, and she had answers for all of them. So what she presented last night is that DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, they have what is called an open public comment period. In this situation, it's for the Title V regulations. So the regulations that govern how we manage septic systems.
Yep.
And as we all know, that septic systems are a large sewer component here in town, right? So what DEP is trying to do is they're trying to introduce these like low nitrogen
releasing,
removing
Yep.
components to existing septic systems. From what I understand, what Karen's presentations, they're very expensive.
Yeah.
And so when she had a map last night, and a lot of the area that is being proposed, and right now in the town of Plymouth is southern part of town,
Yep.
the Miles Standish area
Yep.
certainly, and that it's something what we're going to have to comply with probably within the next 5 years. Part of this map, though, she showed the Cape towns. They have to comply almost immediately.
Right.
Like they're like tier 1 as far as compliance. We're like tier 2 as far as compliance. But why it's concerning is that although it's very good for the environment, and it's really going to change what's been happening, especially to our ponds with this issue around eutrophication.
Yep.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
What they're proposing is very expensive, where some of these modifications to these homeowner septic systems could be upwards of $30,000 to $35,000 to modify. So she introduced this. Selectman Helm has been paying close attention to this. He asked to place this on the agenda, and Karen came in to just put people on alert. Like this is happening. Now is your time to go to this state website to provide input during the comment period. At some point, once these regulations are approved at the state level, Karen's going to come back to the board with an update and maybe some proposals as to what the town can do to help mitigate the costs. Maybe not pay for the cost, but offer low interest or zero interest loans so people can upgrade their systems to meet this new law.
Right, because they're going to have to eventually.
They're going to have to, right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of sewers, it brought me to think about the presentation about what is happening underneath our harbor. And there's a big project going on right now. And I had no idea that 70% of the sewer lines are actually underneath the harbor in this town. Can you explain what that is and why it's being done? Yeah,
so if folks take a drive down to Water Street, they'll see a major construction project taking place, and this is called the Sewer Interceptor Project, and this was advanced by our DPW, had been a couple years in design, and what I learned from this project is that, like you just pointed out, like 70% of the sewer system in that area is all in the harbor, like it's underground in the harbor, and I can't imagine who thought it was a good idea to put a sewer line in the harbor, but they did, decades and decades ago.
Yeah.
And so if you're walking, say, in the area of Mamma Mia's and you're standing in front of the historical wall and you look down into the harbor, especially on low tide, you'll see a number of manholes. And that's the first indication that, because the manholes is where the sewer line is.
Right.
And so what the goal is with this project is to remove the manholes, remove the sewer line from under the harbor and put it in the street where it belongs. It's a very complicated project for a couple of reasons. One, in some areas, the sewer line is 25 feet deep. Wow. So when you go down there and you see these massive metal wall structures. That metal wall structure is a trench, which these workers are working in 25 feet deep, trying to keep the sediment and water from falling in.
Right.
Some of the challenges that they have faced right now is that there's just so much water pouring into this area that they're constantly pumping the water out so that they can replace the old line with the new line. So phase 1 was supposed to be completed in early February. They're already behind on that because of how much rain we've received. And it's not so much, certainly we have to pay attention to high tide when it's coming in, but we've had so much rain that the water's just like infiltrating this hole. So we've lost a number of days because of that. Right now we're hoping though to get back on track. This project is supposed to be completed by June 1st.
Okay.
In fact, that's what the contract says. And of course, that's when our summer months are really starting to rev up. And so we want to be able to turn that street back over to our tourists and get the businesses back on. And we know the businesses are bearing some of the burden because it's very difficult to access some of the businesses down there because of the construction work.
Right. And just I have a question. When we dredged the harbor for the to make it deeper, did that go anywhere near those sewer lines that are under the harbor? Are they closer to the?
Yeah, no, it's further out, further out. When
Okay.
you go over by the floats, over by where the charter boats are, you can see the demarcation line on low tide where they dredged and where they didn't. And so it wasn't in that area.
Okay, that's good to know. So that will be done, and that'll prevent a catastrophic event from happening in the harbor.
Yeah, that's a great
road.
point. So think about what would happen if that sewer line were to erupt in the harbor.
Yeah, with everything in there.
You have raw sewage entering a harbor, and pick the time of year, it doesn't really matter, but if it's during the summer months, you have recreational boaters in the water, and then we have a phenomenal aquaculture industry that is like really starting to like take off, and what this would do as far as contamination in the aquaculture industry. So this is a really good project for a lot of reasons. For a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
So we're looking forward to getting this work done and getting out of there.
Okay, excellent. Meetings and agendas are changing a little bit about how they're going to be handled. Talk about that.
So as you know, Kelly McElrath, who's a new town clerk, began this past summer. She's got 22 years experience being a town clerk. She's doing what we all are doing in our first couple of years, is like, trying to find places where we can improve. And one thing she's noticed is that in the past, when we have 50, 60 boards and committees, and because it's a lot, what they had decided in the past was that, we'll teach each one of the chairs from these committees to post their own agendas. And some of them do it well, some of them not so well. Some of them post it, but it's not meeting the open meeting law, the 48 hours. So what Kelly has decided, and it was approved by the select board last night, is that all agendas to be posted must be submitted to the town clerk 48 hours in advance. That's according to the open meeting law. And she will post them as the town clerk.
Which is actually great.
It's actually the law.
And you have consistency, too. Right?
Right. And so now we know that, like, if a meeting has been posted by the town clerk, it meets the letter of the law.
Exactly.
And so, and it's not that much different than when we created the policy on how to submit warrant articles. We didn't change the process. What we did is we reduced the process down to a policy.
Exactly.
And by doing that, we can hold everyone accountable. So we're being fair and consistent across the board with how we manage our boards and committees.
And to your point, there's some committees that only meet once in a very great while, and they may forget how do I post this on the website.
Yeah, it's so easy. Just email the town clerk. She'll have it posted. Her or one of her staff will have it posted. And it's really, the only thing you have to do is know the town clerk's email address. And it'll get done for you. You don't have to navigate.
I think she created an email for this to send them in.
She did, and I'll have to. I think it is like a town clerk. So but we're gonna socialize that to all the boards and committees. And then the other piece of that is the minutes. The meeting minutes, again, have to be recorded by the town clerk. I mean, they are the town's history. And we want to be able to look back on 100 years from now that, hey, what did the Cans Committee discuss in 2023? And so the town clerk is the keeper of records, and therefore, with this new policy, it will be required for all boards and committees to submit their
minutes.
adopted minutes to the town clerk, and then she can hold them for future housekeeping.
Right. And technically, a lot of people don't realize this, those are the legal record of the meeting. It's not what PACTV might have recorded or somebody else might have recorded. It's not the recording, it's the minutes.
It's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's what the law states. So now you got these boards and committees. Some of them are doing virtual, some are doing hybrid. Some of them are recording them, some of them are not recording them. But the law is very simple, and this is what it's in the policy.
Right.
That if you have a meeting, you got to comply to open meeting law. You have to post it. You have to have the meeting minutes submitted to the town clerk. And if you decide to have a virtual or a hybrid meeting, you must record it.
Right.
And so then now we have to take that recording and then post that in a place so people can go back and watch the meeting.
Right.
Which honestly, like, I love that piece of the law because it holds all of us accountable. You know, it's great that we have PACTV to have our meetings recorded and folks can go back and watch the discussion. But there's a lot of other boards and committees that don't have that opportunity.
That's right.
So they can have a Zoom meeting if they hold it virtually. They make the recording, they send the Zoom link to the town clerk, and she'll post it in perpetuity for people to view for years later.
So will that legally be the minutes of that meeting if it was a Zoom meeting?
No, the
have
law
to have
requires
You
the
still have
meeting
to
minutes.
have
You must have the meeting minutes,
minutes.
but if it's virtual, then you have to have the recording as well.
That's right.
So you do it twice.
Okay.
And again, that last piece of the law, the virtual piece, right now, that's part of the COVID legislation.
Yes.
Ends on March 31st.
Yes.
So we could be having a different discussion on April 1st as
know.
far as how we're going to be dealing with virtual meetings.
I know. But the town meeting was approved to be both virtual meeting. It's live, in person, and virtual.
Yeah, so town
hybrid.
meeting won't be affected by that March 31st deadline because we have special legislation that gives us a special permission that only the town of Plymouth can do this.
Yes.
And so to your point, that allows us to always, if we choose to, have virtual meetings, hybrid meetings, or in-person town meetings.
Right, which is wonderful for the town.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about how we're going to be a platinum-ready community.
So that's the goal.
Okay,
So
what does it mean?
Platinum is, when you say platinum ready, it's, so we've been working with the Economic Development Foundation. Steve Cole, who's been on this show, is great. He's doing a phenomenal job. Him and Lee Hartman, our planning director, you know, they look across some of our areas where there are opportunities for economic development. And we talk a lot about this with the board, about economic development, you know, and what does that mean to our community. One of the areas we think there's opportunity is in the life sciences industry. You know, you think of life sciences and
biotech.
Most people think of Boston, then Cambridge,
Yep.
and I'll throw Worcester in there because they have a lot going on down in life sciences. And so right now there's a tiered readiness structure that the state looks at. Right now, Plymouth is considered gold.
We're
gold ready, right? Which is good, but it's not great.
Okay.
So the next tier and the final tier to get to is called being platinum ready. And platinum ready, when you get to that level, the state starts working with other life sciences firms saying, hey, have you thought about Plymouth? They're platinum ready. They've done all the things that they need to do to start having conversations about life sciences. And so in order for us to get to the platinum level, we've been working with the Board of Health. The Board of Health had one meeting to talk about this, and what the Board of Health would need to do is adopt the NIH regulations. The NIH regulations is the National Institute for Health. They have regulations that are the rules around how these biotech firms can operate. You know, a lot of safety protocols in there, a lot of reporting protocols, a lot of response protocols, the different pathogens they can work in or not work with, right? So, and it's very clear on what their rules of engagement would be if they were to come here. So the Board of Health is reviewing those. They're actually, today is Wednesday, they actually have a meeting today to review those regulations and then hopefully adopt them. Once those NIH regulations are adopted, we can then certify, go back to the state and say, you know, we'd like to submit for platinum readiness. And then once we get that designation, we hope, then we'll start talking to the life sciences industries.
Okay. And I know Stephen Cole talks a lot about that, about biotech and even aquaculture and the whole blue economy of using the ocean is a form of life sciences too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, again, you know, Steve does a great job. He's, you know, Steve's the type of guy, he casts a huge net and see what he can collect.
Absolutely.
You know? And so this is just one of those. But in order to get there, we knew that this was our next first step in order to start having real conversations around the biotech industry.
So once the health department, the board of health, excuse me, votes on this and decides that they're going to do this, we can maybe have more information on what exactly this means. You know, what are the steps that the town will take to become officially platinum ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, so this is what they need to do, the Board of Health, and then once we get that certified, then we can start sitting down and saying, okay, where are these areas, these parks that, you know, these industrial parks that would be able to host some type of facility like this. Right. Yep.
Okay, so way more to be heard about that in the future. There's two other subjects I'd love to talk about in our last 7 minutes. One is elderly tax credits, and there's a lot of positions available for people to volunteer. So if we can talk about that, and then I want to finish out the show with the cultural district, fall in love with Plymouth.
All right, so we only got 7 minutes. That's going by quick.
Okay.
So you probably would remember this past fall town meeting, we had adopted a statute that allows us to add a section on the quarterly tax bills that allows residents to volunteer or donate a sum of money to this elderly and disabled fund. Yep. And so that was just passed. So at the next quarterly bill, you'll see on the tax bill whether or not you want to donate. Right. You can check it off. You can donate $1. You can donate $5. Yep. These donations will go into this fund, and it's just specifically for, you know, elderly and disabled. Mm-hmm. So what the board talked about last night is now that we've adopted this, now that we're starting to start collecting these donations, we need to have a committee. It's actually required by the law that you set up this committee that will then have a policy on how they're going to review applications and determine whether or not somebody meets certain criteria, whether or not they're elderly, whether or not they're disabled, and what percentage of that fund will be given to those people to help offset their taxes. So
this is all about property taxes?
Yes.
This is to help offset the elderly's or the disabled's property taxes?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's completely optional, and people that can afford to do it should do it. Is it a tax write-off? Do you know if you give?
I don't know that specifically, but it's a donation, and I think you can donate up to $500 as a tax write-off. So I think it would definitely be considered a tax write-off.
So that might be an incentive to people too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're just going to start this year.
Yeah, so we're going to start it this year. We're going to form the committee in the next 30 days. So we'll see that posting. We have the treasurer collector sits on it. And then 3 residents of the community will sit on this committee, and there's 5, I forget the 5th person, what they represent. So they'll come together, they'll first draft the policy will go to the front of the select board, they'll adopt it, and then we'll be off and running.
Okay, and it depends on how much is in the fund to determine how much you can give.
That's right.
Okay, and that'll be up to the committee that'll make those decisions.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Yep. Before we go to fall in love with Plymouth, can we just talk for 1 minute about the charter, the new charter that people will be voting on this May to adopt a new charter or not for the town? And by law, everyone in the town that's a voter has to receive a copy of this, correct?
That's right. That's right.
So you have to determine the best way to send out that actual copy of the charter, which is, you know, it's not insignificant. Yeah. And so you're determining right now the most efficient way to send that out to everybody?
Yeah, so as you pointed out, Julie, the statute requires, and it says very specifically, that a printed copy must be distributed to every registered voter in town. Yep. So the original thought process was we'll print a clean version, so the proposed version, and then a red line version, which is all the changes. Yep. So folks can see, you know, what is it today, what are we proposing the change to be? Yep. We did the cost analysis on sending both of those documents, and it was over $100,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So we came back, I mean, not we, but, you know, Michelle Turner, Anthony Sinesi worked together, working with the Charter Commission to try to figure out a more cost-effective measure. So it appears what's going to happen is that we're going to send just a red line version. It's going to be a folded document. It's going to have all the changes. We'll send that out to every home in the community, not just the registered voters. So every home will get a copy of this, and we're thinking it's going to cost somewhere between $17,000 and $20,000. So
better than 100.
Drastic reduction in cost.
Yeah, and people really need to see that and be able to read it and have it.
Yeah, I think folks need to understand where we are today and what's being proposed for tomorrow.
Exactly. And finally, let's talk about Fall in Love with Plymouth campaign and who started it and the big banner that might hang on Town Hall.
So the Plymouth Cultural District, working with the Chamber of Commerce, have put together this Fall in Love of Plymouth campaign. And it's it's a lot of different things. They're going to have photo opportunities throughout town. They're gonna have this big event, that's going to be a culmination of everything that's going on, and just kind of a smattering of things for the month of February and the month of March. But one of the big things they really want to do is they have this banner, and I saw the artist rendition. It's a beautiful banner. It's about 18 feet in length, and they want to hang it in front of Town Hall. So when people drive into the center of town, they see this big, beautiful banner that says "Fall in Love with Plymouth." And so, it's a great campaign. I'm sure they've done similar things in the past. I think what's different this year is that, since I've been here in town, and it's been one of the board's biggest goals is to get Town Hall more engaged in the activity of the town center. And so this is just another example. Like, the tree lighting was one, and the Halloween event was another one. So this is just another example. We just got to work through a couple of challenges that that may come from this, and we think if we can get over those, it'll be a great event.
That sounds awesome. A little bit about the cultural district that's gotten a lot of play lately. We have a poet. We might have other cultural attachés in the future. Is this something that you see that Plymouth is going to just keep going and get stronger and stronger on because we have so much arts and culture?
Yeah, I honestly do think, and I'm a sports person, so like the art industry is foreign to me. But when I talk to people like Robin over in the planning department, like the ideas they have are just so amazing, and I can't help but say yes. Right. So I'm just kind of part of the experience and all that. But they've done the cultural district, with Robin supporting them over the years, have done so much. They're the ones that they put the wraps around the boxes in town. They're the ones with the seashells and the lobsters. They're the ones that have done all that work. So
the chamber did those. They worked with the cultural district.
Right, they all work together. Right. But we've talked about, in my short time here, like murals, like and like they've done what's like powwow whistles. So, I mean, again, like I'm along for the ride on this one, but I definitely think that Plymouth could be like a mecca for arts and culture. And people probably are. I was going to say people who are probably already in the world probably would say, Derek, we already are. Yeah, we are. But like definitely, I could see this like. Being a huge scene moving forward.
And it makes you smile. And that's a good way to end the show today.
That's right.
So thank you so much, Derek.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This week's in Plymouth.